Hey y'all, it's Nikki. I have to tell you about Tecovas boots. I finally have a pair and they're handmade, high quality, stylish, and comfortable. I even got them customized with leather stamping. The folks at Tecovas will help you find just the right pair. So swing by for yours at the Tecovas flagship on South Congress or their store at the Domain. Plus, good news, they just opened a new store in Georgetown at 709 Main Street for those of y'all that live a little further north. So come shop with me at Tecovas. That's TECOVAS.com. Don't go gently, y'all. Today on CityCast Austin, we've just passed the bill filing deadline at the Texas legislature, and things are moving quickly. So we're checking in on a few bills that will affect Austinites. We're talking Project Connect, short-term rentals, and consumable hemp bans. It's Monday, March 24th. I'm Nikki Devon, and this is what Austin's talking about. Hello, I'm here with Blaze Gainey, Texas Capitol reporter for KUT, and also my birthday twin. Hi, Blaze. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for being here, and congratulations. Happy belated birthday, all the good stuff.
Listen, happy belated birthday. Unfortunately, Pisces season is over, but that's all right. That's okay. We had a good time. So we are about a third of the way through the legislative session. How would you sum up your first one here in Austin so far?
You know, everywhere I've reported on before, they had a session every single year. It only lasts about 3 to 4 months. This one is moving so slow that I've just been like, oh my gosh, what are they doing now? More resolutions? But I mean, they have a longer time. So my guess is that now they are going to start getting down to work since we've passed the bill filing deadline. So now we can see everything that they're going to work on this session, unless, there are still ways to file bills or make amendments, vast amendments to bills that could change them. But for the most part, we know what the landscape is and we can see what they're trying to do. And so I think it's, I feel like it's starting to heat up.
I love that you're like, oh my God, what's taking y'all so long? And I'm like, what are they doing now? What else could possibly happen? There's too much going on.
I feel like not much has happened. In Tennessee, where I was at, they passed the bills like the first week and got them to the governor.
Oh my God.
Yeah, and the governor would sign them within 2 days, and then there would be new laws. Yeah, it was like,
That's crazy.
It was quick.
So, okay, there's always some tension between the city of Austin and Texas lawmakers. So we want to talk about some of it. First of all, Representative Ellen Troxclair, who represents Austin and used to be on the city council, has a bill that's trying to kill Project Connect. And I'm confused because I thought we already approved Project Connect. How could she kill it? Why is she trying to kill it? Like, what is going on? Is Austin fighting back? Like, what's the status?
She's filed a bill along with Senator Betancourt that says if the price fluctuates dramatically, either up or down, or the scope of the project either decreases and voters aren't going to get what they thought they were going to get, or if it, goes up a lot, then it basically, we can claw back the vote essentially, and they'll have to try again. Say voters were promised or believed in advertisements were like, there will be a stop at the airport, there will be a stop downtown, there will be a stop, in East Austin and in Round Rock, close neighboring area. If some of those things went away, they could say, well, this isn't what voters voted for.
Right.
So, I mean, in a way, somebody could say this is a, good thing because voters want what they voted for on paper, right? And so if the project is changed anyway, is that fair to voters who are now essentially paying more in taxes or their tax money is being diverted towards this to get something that they ultimately don't want, or isn't in the exact shape they wanted it in? from a city standpoint, they'll probably say, projects change all the time. There's
Right.
no way that they could determine, how this was going to go. So far, it seems like they're still fine to continue moving forward, although that doesn't mean attempts like these aren't going to continue happening basically until the project is, ground broken and they started construction.
So this can continue. There could continue to be pushback in this way.
Oh, yeah. I mean, there will be pushback throughout the entire process. I mean, if you think of like an oil pipeline, it's something that most people may be against, like going through their area, that would be protested to the point the oil starts flowing through the pipes, right? So why would somebody not protest this until the trains start rolling?
That makes sense. So is there a likelihood this attempt that she'll be able to kill it?
I don't know. I can't really project. I mean, neither bill has gotten a hearing yet, but also I said they're just now starting to heat up. Most of the things that they've taken care of so far have been like major priorities. And so my guess is they'll eventually get to this, but whether or not it ends up having any effect on the Project Connect is, probably going to be determined by a judge in a lawsuit.
Wow. So, okay, another interesting dynamic is with the short-term rentals. So recently, Austin City Council passed 3 new regulations related to short-term rentals, but only one of them is going into effect soon, and the others won't be implemented until after the session ends. Do you know what lawmakers are doing regarding short-term rentals this session?
I haven't seen exactly what the state lawmakers are doing, but I have seen what the city's trying to do. And honestly, I'm surprised that they've had a struggle to do it, because other areas across the state, at least what I'm reading, is like Dallas and Houston have similar things where they can charge. Essentially, these companies that do the short-term rentals would be collecting the taxes. This would increase tax money for Austin, the city of Austin, definitely people who are neighboring these areas, I guess, being loud and probably belligerent late night coming home next to their house where they've been living for, over a decade and maybe raising kids. That's not really a great setting. So maybe if they increase the tax that will need to be collected, or they do it in a different way and put different laws around, they could, sort of pack these things in either into one area or spread them out to where it's not just such a disturbance in the neighborhood.
Right.
So do we want to necessarily end it all together to keep the residents happy? But it also is a relief on residents if we can get more taxes from, these people visiting here rather than get the taxes directly from them, from the residents. So it'll be interesting to see moving forward. That's sort of just how my brain works, because at the end, I think, the politicians and elected officials, yes, they care about the people, but they also have to look at the financial cost of these things.
Right.
And if they're going to be taking something that puts a lot of money into their budget, then they'll probably think twice before doing it. So it'll be interesting to see exactly what happens in the end.
But it sounds like you're not hearing much about it on the legislative end of things. Have there been any hearings or anything about it? Do you know the status of the bill?
I don't really see much state legislation about Airbnb specifically. I do see something about, religious organizations being able to use to develop multifamily and mixed use housing on some of their land, which is actually, I believe that's happening here in Austin. Like a church has a vast amount of property, and they can use that to then start a housing unit or whatnot. But as far as directly related to like a single home being rented out, I don't see that specifically in the state, but I know Austin is looking to do some stuff.
Yeah, we're definitely struggling. There's a new show coming to the Zach Theater, and it sounds incredible. Y'all have to go check out Bob and Jean, A Love Story, written by Robert Schenken, a Pulitzer Prize-winning playwright. So when Bob is deployed overseas and Jean tours with the USO, distance tests their devotion like never before. It's a wartime romance that captures the rush, thrill, and doubt of falling and staying in love. And y'all, this is a true story drawn from Schenken's own parents' letters. And it reminds us that even in the hardest times, love endures. So check out Bob and Jean on stage through April 19th. You can get your tickets at zachtheater.org. That's ZACH theater.org. Just off the Texas coast sits a unique beach town marked with salty vibes and sun-soaked memories. Port Aransas is a place where family traditions unfold naturally, and beauty lies both in island views and the unhurried moments between adventures. It's a place where multiple generations can get together under one roof to share slow beachfront mornings and cool Gulf breeze evenings. An island escape with 18 miles of shoreline to cast your line, kayak with the kids, or simply cruise the coast in a golf cart. One visit, and you'll see why generations of Texans have anchored their traditions to the island life. Start your new favorite family tradition in Port Aransas, Texas. Go to visitportaransas.com and plan your visit to Austin's beach. So, okay, now I want to get into something that I'm a little obsessed with, SB3, this ban on all consumable hemp products in Texas. So Senator Charles Perry from Lubbock is behind this one, and he's trying to regain control over hemp products being sold in the state. And that bill just passed the Senate, right?
Yes, that's correct.
You think it has a chance in the Texas House?
I do because, the lawmakers I've spoken with have said that when they passed the hemp bill that allowed all this stuff to be legal, they didn't realize the implications of it. And at the time, nobody had realized. And because I remember when this all broke out for the first time, I was in Florida reporting, and people's shops where they were selling these THC products, they were being raided and taken, and they weren't allowed to sell these products at first. They were only allowed to sell the CBD stuff. That's what people intended. And then eventually, when it went through testing, they had to, the law enforcement had to give people back products and whatnot because it wasn't Delta 9. So Delta 9 is illegal, but Delta 8 is not. And then they have like THCA and all this other stuff. Essentially, these are all cannabinoids. They have, very similar effects. Right. Lawmakers don't like that because it's essentially a legal version of marijuana. They never wanted this to be legal or marijuana to be legal. And this is like a loophole that has been used. And so they want to, say, hey, this is not what we wanted. We wanted people to be able to access CBD. And so my belief is they're going to, ban all of these like THC gummies that are in stores. My God. And it's interesting because I wonder how much pushback they will get because of the negative impact it'll have of $27 million in taxes.
Come on,
that goes to the state.
About. Exactly.
It's a big moneymaker, and that's over the next biennium. But my thought is, if a state is looking to, they want to spend a lot of money on, and then property taxes and other things. Now, this is a small drop in that bucket, right? We're talking billions to help in property taxes. This is only millions. But ultimately, it just seems like, why would you want to cut anywhere? My guess is they could come out with some stricter regulations in order to try to make sure these aren't getting to the hands of minors. There are some Republicans who still feel like, alcohol is legal, tobacco is legal, for over 18 and over 21. And so if we just put an age limit on this, which I believe it already is an age limit, but if we just make it more strict and more penalties on anybody selling to minors, then we could curb this issue in that way. Because in the end, these kids that are using it, they just see a item that looks like candy. I think some lawmakers just don't want it at all, right? And then you have some that are like, we just don't want it in the hands of children, and we'll see which side necessarily wins.
Oh my God. Just let people have it. I understand you want to keep it out of the hands of children. Children should not be in head shops anyway. I don't think everybody uses these products for recreational things. It is really helpful for some people, for anxiety, for pain. If you're absolutely just no marijuana, period, then there has to be a way for people to access something similar so they can get the benefits, because there are benefits. And also, I saw that 1/4 of the state's consumable hemp sales taxes are coming from Austin. And so Are we seeing are lawmakers hearing from maybe business owners? Are they listening to business owners trying to like explain to them the nuance at all?
Yeah, I'm sure they have. I actually sat down with Agriculture Commissioner Sid Miller, and he's on board with the bill, but he also realizes that, there are mom and pop businesses that sell these products. These aren't
Yeah.
like big corporations, right? These are like, you see them on almost every other corner or they're every other street, advertising these things for sale. Definitely in Austin, definitely around the college area. You see like, I mean, it's one street like right outside of where I work at, where it's just like two shops, like not far from each other, walking distance. And yeah, they sell like nicotine products and CBD, but then the one they advertise is like, we have this Delta 8 flour or we have this Delta 8 gummies or whatever. But
Right.
this is a big moneymaker for businesses. So it'll be interesting to see whether or not they actually go all the way out and ban it. And I wonder the impact of it to the stores. Would we see literal stores just starting to shut down and close because they're not turning a profit just selling the CBD? But I do agree with your point that these are beneficial to people. I mean, studies have shown that it's beneficial. It's being used as a real medicine for some people to deal with anxiety, to deal with all sorts of things, right? And so to me, there has to be some balance, because if you turn people away from this solution, in my opinion, then they're going to go either use, I'm not saying they're going to use illegal drugs, but they may get addicted to pain medications,
prescription drugs,
or opioids.
Right,
Why would we
exactly.
not allow people to, have some alternative that has not, necessarily seen the issues that opioids have seen, right? I don't see many people overdosing and dying from, these gummies, although I have heard stories from Republicans that say, like, children have been hospitalized.
Like you mentioned earlier, smoking, alcohol, opioids, like these are the things that you just have history of just like histories of death from alcoholism, histories of death from smoking, histories of like it just this idea of it having to be like all or nothing, or just like not being able to really come up with any kind of alternative. I get so frustrated with our state when it comes to stuff like this, because it just feels like this digging in of your heels. It's like, no, we've decided that this is wrong. We don't care. It doesn't matter. This is right. It's like all at all costs so that you can be right. This is wrong. What you could be doing is helping your constituents.
But maybe because it's not actual marijuana, they aren't looking at it the same way. Like the studies for Delta 9 are, proven studies. I don't know if there's exact studies on THCA and Delta 8, even though the people who take it say it still helps them, just like Delta 9, which is technically marijuana by definition. In Florida, you have to go to a doctor to get your medical marijuana card, and you have to have like a real reason why. So a lot of this is just sort of, you can walk into a shop and you don't have any pains or illnesses, but you just want to feel the drug in your system or the substance in your system, whatever.
Right.
That, I think, is what some lawmakers don't want.
You go and buy liquor so that you can change how you feel because you like the effects of it. And then, you have these instances where someone gets into a car and hurts someone. You know what I mean? It's just
no. You're definitely right with the fact that liquor is one of the, it's regulated, of course, but it's not looked at in the same way as marijuana has been. And I mean, we can go back into history and see the reasons why. And obviously, there was a time when liquor was, there was a liquor ban a very, very, very long time ago.
Texas lawmakers just make weed legal. I don't know why we're still talking about this.
From a financial standpoint, I think, to me, they should do it. And
they should do it. It would make so much money for this state. It would make so much money. They're leaving money on the table. It drives them crazy.
But that's the same thing with sports gambling and casinos. I mean, they're leaving money on the table in that way.
Yeah.
But, I watched, recently, it was sort of a funny video, but the guy wasn't joking around, but it was in Dallas after they traded Luka Doncic. A guy went and was talking about how the owners just want a casino and, how this is going to do nothing but, get money out of the people's hands and get them addicted to gambling and how it's going to be terrible for the community. So I think that is how some people think about these things. It's like, well, we don't want gambling because then we're going to have a bunch of people going around addicted to gambling and having financial crisis because not everybody's a great money manager, right? And so, do you want that, or do you want to just have a state where that stuff is legal? Now, obviously, the state is doing really good financially. You can always make more money, but they could be making a lot less also.
Right.
And so I think they're looking at it as, hey, we're doing fine, taking care of what we need to in their eyes. And we don't need to add in these other things that we see could come along with other problems.
They drive me crazy, Blaze. They drive me crazy. So I know that there's another thing we need to talk about. I want to talk about furries.
Yes. Yes.
Let's get into it.
So there was a bill filed by a representative. He's calling it the Furries Act, but it would stop kids from being in schools acting like animals, which is funny, right? Like people say kids act like animals and act crazy all the time, but he means literally doing things that animals do, like drinking out of a bowl, with their tongue, which actually is I've read is like actually pretty impossible for humans to do because our tongues, we don't have the same muscles in our tongues that animals do. So we can't necessarily do that. He's apparently alleging that, and the governor has also said that schools are lowering tables at lunch so kids can eat more like animals, without their hands and just dive right in. Similar to if you ever seen A Christmas Story when she's like, how does a pig eat?
Yes,
and he just dive.
Yeah.
So they think that kids they believe there are some places where kids are doing this. When I emailed with the governor's office, they said it was at least 2 small rural counties. They wouldn't name the counties, but they said at least 2 small rural counties where these instances similar to what I described are occurring. There's also other thoughts that kids are using litter boxes in classes to obviously use the restroom in. These things have been debunked in the past. The governor says there are 2 small counties. I can't confirm it because they won't give me the counties. If it is happening, I wouldn't want my kid doing that, right? I don't think any parent would say we want our kids doing that in classes. We don't want our kids eating out of bowls like an animal, peeing and pooping in a litter box. So if it is happening, then yes, it should stop. But if it's not happening, and this is my personal stance, I don't see the issue with putting it on the books because if it's not happening, it doesn't hurt anybody. But one thing that is in there and some of my coworkers saw as could become a problem is that kids can also not wear like cat ears or tails. Little girls have hats and berets and all sorts of things that have like animal type things on them, like animal ears or cat ears. And is this saying that they can't even do something as simple as just wearing a headband that has a cat ear on it? Because that may be, to me, that is getting a little too into the weeds. They're not acting like an animal. They just think it's cute or nice to dress up and have that on their head.
Oh,
and it was also a limit in the bill where it's like, you can't do this except for like Halloween and specific events where your school allows you to dress up, or if you're like in arts and you're doing a play. And I think it was like limited to like 5 times a year. So I just thought like,
my God.
I thought it was really funny that like 5 times a year, it's okay to dress up like an animal, but 6 is where you might actually become an animal or something. I don't know.
Now we're legislating children's creativity and imagination, right? That's what we're doing now.
Essentially, I mean, little kids growl and bark and hiss and meow as like a joke.
Nobody is making your child eat from a dog bowl. Nobody is making your child do that. Now, if someone is making your child eat from a dog bowl when your child doesn't want to, that person needs to be dealt with and taken care of. But if we're talking about the imagination and the creativity of children, I don't have kids, but I was an incredibly imaginative kid. I was always in my head, always being one time I wanted to be a unicorn. Sometime I wanted to be a cat. You never know what's going on. You think about kids that are on the spectrum. Sometimes this is how they communicate. This is how they feel safe. You cannot control children's imaginations. And I don't understand what the issue is. Is it because kids are eating out of bowl. Like, is it sanitary issue? Are the bowls not clean? I don't give a crap what a kid eats out of as long as they're being fed. Baby, if you want to eat out of a dog bowl on the floor and your mother is okay with it, all right. Like that. I don't know about the litter box. Litter box, I think sanitary issues have to, like, that's just a lot, right? Kids are messy. They're frenetic. Teachers are already like stretched to the limit. What does it matter what a kid has on their head? What does it matter if I want to be a dog today? Are you getting your education? Are you safe? Are you healthy? Are you happy? Do your parents know? Are your parents okay with it? Then lawmakers, it is none of your business. It's none of your business.
It definitely is wild. And what I thought was a little interesting about it, and this relates to a much more serious issue, is that the governor sort of brought this up in order to then sort of say, if this is happening in your public school, don't worry, school choice is on the way, and it could help you get out of that situation. But what was interesting is, like, one, if this is so limited that it's only in 2 small rural counties, one, I wonder if they even have a private school those kids could attend. Right. But also, it just seems like if this is a debunked thing, if you're thinking from the standpoint that this is not happening, but now we have the governor of the state saying it is in order to try and help pass school choice, it just makes me think, for one, or one could think, is school choice, is there a thought that it couldn't pass? Because the governor was very excited about it, about getting the numbers. At least he said he had the numbers. But to me, it's sort of like now you're using this debunked theory to try to say, to try to push school choice. Well, if it's school choice such a good idea, I think people will pass it. You shouldn't need this. If it's such a great idea, that was where my head went with it, was like, well, gosh, you kind of stooping pretty low to try to pass this bill. But like I said, if it is happening, and I am a parent, so I want to comment on what you said earlier. I don't want my kid, no matter if my kid wants to or not, eating out of a dog bowl. He needs to eat. Now, I understand if he's eating with his hands, like chicken fingers or fries, and, if he's not necessarily holding his fork the right way, okay, cool. You don't have to go that far. But I don't want him doing any of the eating straight out of a bowl. That's different. But if he's like, playing in the playground and acting like a bird or a dog, I mean, like, leave him alone. Like, he's just being imaginative. As long as he's not like harming anybody. Yeah, I do agree. At some point, it's like, how much do you want to curtail what a kid is doing? If they're not actually causing any harm. Now, like I said, I don't think many parents would want their kids eating out of a bowl like that. And definitely, maybe at home they would allow it, but not in front of a whole group of people. Just because, people talk. And, now little Nicky is going to go home and tell his parents, like, hey, Mark was eating out of this bowl like this, and he said his parents allow him to do that. Now they're going to be judging you when they see you at the market. Like,
oh my God. Listen.
Now, I think that could be an issue that is apart from the actual bill. But I think it's a slippery slope of like, okay, the kids want to act like dogs today. They're joking around and barking in the hallways. It's a joke. It'll pass in a week. You know how kids are very, they get into one thing and then they're onto it, something else the next. Now, if they're, walking around on hands and knees with leashes, okay, we need to cut that out. That's crazy.
This is the thing that concerns me, and that I think it kind of coincides with what you're saying. They are very strategic in their use of the word furries, because furries also means something else in an adult world. And there is a different way, there's a different term that they could have used to describe what they're talking about. But instead, they intentionally and specifically used a very adult term, so as to, I think, if a parent looks up the term, or if a parent, like, exactly, it's going to plant this seed of inappropriateness and sex. And that is what I don't like. It's like this inadvertent way that they are connecting a child's silliness and imagination and creativity, even if it's over the top and too much, to sex. It's real manipulative and real tricky, and I don't like that. I don't like the use of that term.
Well, in the actual bill, it's just it is, like you said, a long term to try and purposely spell out furries for the Furries Act. But the actual bill describes it as non-human activities or something like that, which probably, people probably wouldn't be too upset if it said that, right? Like, but yeah,
Yeah,
the Furries Act pulls in a whole different demographic of
exactly.
people where it's like, hold
Exactly.
on, who are you talking about exactly? And
Exactly.
if I was to put on sort of your glasses or your goggles and your mind on this, it would say, okay, well, this seems like a further attack on like a very small community
Yeah.
of adult activity that is private for the
Yeah.
most part.
Yeah.
And, similar to the attacks that we've seen on other small groups, LGBTQ, others as well. And so, is it on purpose? He purposely spelled out furries.
This is what I'm saying.
It's not too far-fetched to believe that he made sure that when adults heard this bill, because adults will not, kids aren't looking up this legislation, and if they look it up, they would easily find the thing about the other furries. I didn't even think of, I knew, obviously, I knew the two things, but I didn't think about, is that what the image they're trying to put in people's heads for that don't read further into the bill to see that, oh, they just mean kids meowing and putting on cat ears or, dressing up in costume or, peeing in litter boxes. And I should say the litter boxes thing, none of this stuff is new. This was debunked back in 2022.
Right.
But obviously, like, it's come back up because of this issue.
Listen, all I'm going to say is these two rural counties, we might want to make sure that they actually exist. I think we're talking about an imaginary two rural counties that have been made up. An imaginary. Anyways, Blaze, thank you so much for being here. Thank you for bringing me up to speed. It is always a pleasure. And I can't wait to have you back on here.
Of course. I'm glad to be here.
That's all for today here on CityCast Austin. You can find links to Blaze's work in our show notes. If you enjoyed the show, why not tell a friend, rate the show, leave us a review, and subscribe to our Hey Austin newsletter. We'll be back tomorrow morning with more news from around the city. Bye, y'all.